After playing 2 single-player missions of Crimson Freedom during its second playtest, I am not just blown away by the quality of this indie RTS, which is still very much in development, but also by how focused these devs are on making it just the kind of game we all would enjoy playing, with a strong focus on narrative and characters.
He'll link up with us soon.
Then let us fight with you.
Since first telling you about it in my RTS news video, these devs have not only honored their promise of giving us 2 playtests before the end of the year, but also used the feedback we left for them and improved the game in just a few weeks.
By 2250, that technology gave us the Mindful Citizen Surveillance System.
Launching this second playtest, you get treated to a storyboard intro, which uses art animated with Ken Burns effect, which allows for a quality intro experience without having to invest into expensive cinematics. But the voiceovers and music are top notch and help you instantly become invested into the world of Crimson Freedom.
Became our bargaining chip. We enjoyed a fruitful relationship with the home planet. But a decade after the colony began, Earth suddenly attacked.
Since many polls you have voted on my channel show that players prefer the single-player experience, such a focus on these features shows you these devs are aware of that as well, and know their future player base well. But don't worry, multiplayer won't be forgotten. Anyway, as we get into the first mission, titled The Rise of the Red Rebellion, we are treated to more such art and character introductions. But one thing that bothered me was the fact that the main protagonist, Valeria, almost seemed to have a different hairstyle and hair color than when we first saw her in the game's intro. It's not a big difference, but it was enough that it created a dissonance between the two in my mind. And for storytelling art that is just seconds or at most minutes apart for the player, it should be coherent as possible. You can tell me in the comments, did you have a similar observation or did it not bother you?
Without Dante, our rebellion is over. So we don't have a choice.
As the first story mission starts, you get clear mission objectives on the left with a standard list of what to construct to develop your first base, but also something very old school, keeping your main character and hero unit alive. Now, some players feel like this mechanic should go the way of left-clicking to move, meaning that it should be surpassed by a different way of keeping the main characters relevant. And I am personally divided on this. On one hand, I like their presence on the battlefield and giving them abilities, like Valeria has to heal her soldiers both actively and passively, as well as keeping her present for story and mission events, helping me become invested into her journey. On the other hand, as others have pointed out in their feedback on the dev's Discord server, which I have linked in the description of this video, such must survive or you lose the mission mechanics feel outdated and beg for frustrating mistakes that cost you a lot of invested time into a mission. Lose focus or sight of your hero, get her killed, and you have to restart leaving a bad taste. This can be avoided by adding some revive mechanics, but then again you have to make them believable and part of the lore so that the story doesn't suffer. As always, I would like to read your opinions on this in the comments. Another thing I have to point out that I found very interesting is how the game doesn't do much handholding. Your buildings don't specifically state which ones need to be constructed to unlock the grayed out ones. There are no visual indicators showing you that your base will be attacked from 2 directions, sometimes simultaneously. You have to get this from the cues the game gives you, like a new squad of units showing up just from one side of the base to support your starting units.
Whoa! Hold fire! We're rebels! Same side!
All this helps to keep clutter off your UI and screen, as well as to force you to pay attention. You're not here just for the ride, you're the driver in the hot seat. And because of this, you aren't given a strict path of how to progress through the mission. The scripting is light, and you can take different paths to the final objective, deciding how to handle enemy presence on the map. Ignore and turtle, sending out control groups to specific and main objectives, or expand aggressively and hunt down every enemy group and base, clearing the map before the final showdown. A thing that this game does well, but that I usually find is an issue in RTS games, is when units just stand around while their fellow soldiers get killed in their sightlines. That passiveness always annoyed me, so I am very happy to see that in Crimson Freedom, units jump to help other allies under fire and move quite a bit to engage enemies. This can be a problem if you're holding down a defensive line, but you do have a button on the unit's UI to change their behavior. However, since they get recruited with the default behavior being offensive, and because you recruit and lose a lot of units during a mission, you have to keep doing this manually. One thing I hope to see improved, or should I say added, before the next playtest or demo is the visual effects of units using their active abilities. Whenever I clicked on my hero unit and used its active healing ability, the only way to know it's even working is when I would see unit's HP bar filling up. A similar situation is when I used the burst fire ability of the rebar vehicle, or when I sent out my scout to collect resource containers across the map. Now, what developers have worked on and improved in between these two playtests and based on our feedback was to add a window to see keyboard controls using the F1 key, along with making sure that the drag select commands no longer pick up builder or harvester units and only combat units. You can now even see visual cues when you give units the follow command on another unit or try to put units into an already full transport or bunker. Even more importantly, devs have made balancing changes and increased starting resources in the skirmish, along with giving players some starting units. If you try the skirmish again during this playtest, you can see that infantry is now generally weaker, while vehicles feel a bit more powerful. They have done more, and I hope by the next demo our feedback from this playtest will be incorporated. I will of course let you know in my RTS news videos about the date of that demo coming online, but you can probably expect it during some Steam Next Fest, as that seems to be the new norm for posting demos and playtests en masse. Now, I know this is just a playtest, and nitpicking should be avoided. I do, however, have to mention that while I love the feel of combat and following mission objectives from battle to battle, one thing that I found too simplistic and lacking finesse is placement and behavior of enemy units. The Orbis Concordia faction is presented as the solar-wide police force that travels between planets and oppresses humankind. But in these missions, they travel in specific groups, attack head-on and look like they spawned out of nowhere in large clumps across the map. There is no organic feel to their unit placement across the map, there are no patrols, no properly organized attacks against my base, or some local character who I can at least feel some animosity towards. I think the dev responsible for the placement and behavior of enemy units during missions has yet to get into heavy scripting and padding of enemy units, and his job doesn't seem easy at all. The maps are good and support a lot of what I hope to see once this is done, so the base gameplay and mechanics are there, it just needs filling. Now, of course, I could list other kinds of mid-development errors, like when your main character dies but the story exposition continues while you stare at the game over screen.
Convenient. Suggestions?
Yeah, rockets.
Or how mission objectives on screen get accomplished before the character exposition about them is finished.
Turret's going offline. Gate unlocking in 3, 2, 1. Go! Go!
Or how you can see the laser tank in your unit's recruitment UI of the workshop building, but can't actually unlock its use for the first mission. But I would rather point your attention to some well done elements, like how communication between characters during missions is done with 2D avatar pictures showing up, made with a good art style which make it look superior than many 3D animated ones. Then I should point out the good-looking combat animations and the fact that units can only fire when stationary, which is the right approach for an RTS of this design. I know many Beyond All Reason fans are so used to firing on the move at this point that playing games without this feature is quite difficult for them. But I believe that at a certain scale, you have to keep them designed this way, while moving and shooting works much better for large-scale games. Feel free to tell me otherwise in the comments below. Anyway, this leads us to the second mission, once again with a nice introduction and storytelling elements.
Systems running. Nothing more. The only good news is that Orbis needs Finch alive.
In this mission, the enemy is far more active and aggressive, which is why you're given bunkers to construct. You basically first turtle up in this mission, and then expand out, getting more resource patches, which do run out, so you have to keep attacking and moving, collecting resource containers from the map, or risk running out of resources as the battles keep coming and control groups keep needing to be reinforced with new units. One thing that disappointed me was how at the start of this mission, you're told that you're coming up to an old abandoned base. But instead of low health buildings you have to repair, you find yourself with building blueprints on pause waiting for you. For a believable storytelling experience and good atmosphere, this has to be improved. I have talked about the importance of these factors in my previous video, where dozens of game developers shared their vision on what makes RTS games fun. If you haven't watched it already, I highly recommend watching it and seeing what other new and upcoming RTS games you will be playing in 2026. The second mission requires you to once again divide your attention to several fronts at the same time. And while the game is set for low APM requirements, it does give you a lot to keep track of because of this approach. And personally, I very much like this. It made me think about my plans and moves ahead of time and forced me to strategize more than focus on individual fights in my unit micro. This is why having a hero must not die mission objective I mentioned before fits even less into this kind of gameplay design. I would love it if it were possible to put them into a building to speed up unit recruitment, or for the building to put out veteran units, or a tech building to have cheaper or faster tech unlocks. This would still make the character matter while keeping them away from trouble and taxing players' APM or attention. You can also share your own ideas about this in the comments. I am aware that this digs into the storytelling part of the game if done like this, as the character wouldn't be present for on-map events. Finally, at the end of the second mission, we get to face some more unique enemies as characters and the story really begins to shine through. I hope you enjoyed this video and gameplay and will wishlist Crimson Freedom. If you don't get a chance to be part of this playtest, make sure to keep following my updates on it in videos like the ones I have here on the screen and in the description. Thank you for watching and happy gaming!